Warning: the following program may contain material not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The borders of space and time have opened once again. And transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's time once again for Let's Find Out with Diego. The universe is waiting for you. Wake up and remember.
On this episode of Let's Find Out, our guest has been living the most interesting life. His journey has had many haunting happenings during his time in college, the military, on travel, and in relationships. We're going to explore this side of his ventures where strange and unusual experiences have been following him in all stages of his life. He's a writer, director, producer, author, and possibly haunted. All this plus more. Please welcome our new friend and first-time guest, Jason J. Tavares. Jason, my friend, welcome to Let's Find Out.
So, buddy, thanks for having me.
Oh, no, it's awesome. Our conversation before the shows are always the most interesting ones. For those that don't know, is pre-interview is one of the greatest things, I think, for the show. Because not only do we get to know each other, I get to learn a little more background about you, and we get to work on some of these internet bugs that have been plaguing us for the last few minutes. But we're all aces. We're good to go.
Nice.
And we're going to get right to it. You've juggled a lot of things in your life. You know, we're talking about your careers, relationships, your films, the paranormal, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes. But let's get started real quick on your short films that you've done. I was looking through the IMDb, and the list is like this. And you've done a lot of work. What got you into filmmaking and making these shorts? How far back do we go with that?
They started in 2012, and the reason for it, I was an extra in a lot of movies. There was a movie came out called Underdog about that little dog who has superpowers and things, and I was in that as a SWAT team member. So that came to Rhode Island. And then there was another movie called Hard Luck with Wesley Snipes, and I got to be in that, and I had really cool scenes, and when it came out, they were all cut. I was cut out of everything.
No.
But it was still cool. I got to meet Wesley Snipes and stuff like that. So that was pretty neat. And on Underdog, I got to meet Jim Belushi. And he was really nice, really nice guy, very personable. So that was like a good experience. And then they did a TV show here called The Waterfront in Rhode Island. I got to do 3 episodes of that. And they asked, do you want to stay on? And they could maybe work people in. Me and a couple other people got asked. And then they dropped the show. And I was like, oh, God. So after that experience, I started writing books. And then so I started writing books probably in 2006. I didn't really start making films till 2012. But I really kind of left the extra work once I started writing the books. And I went back to it here and there later on prior to making films. And then I just decided, you know, I don't always want to be an extra. I want to make my own stuff or at least give it a shot.
Well, let's not go over. Let's go over the work you did with as an extra.
Okay.
Very important part in filmmaking because you need people to do these kind of works.
Yeah.
What is life like an extra? Because there seems to be like very long days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're working sometimes. I don't know if it's like that today, but in the military, they have a saying, hurry up and wait. They say it in the military a lot, hurry up and wait. Like you get all ready and you're ready to go, but then you have a long wait time. Extra work is a lot like that. I've had one time I sat in a room with other extras for like 13 hours because they were working on other scenes. Like you're getting paid for it and stuff like that. But at the same time, I mean, extras do a lot of waiting. But other than that, it's interesting. You get to see how it all works. You see cameras. You may get picked up for some speaking lines. You know what I mean? It's like you're in an opportunity. It's just a matter if that's going to come to fruition, you know?
Well, with extra work, as you're talking about, maybe you might be able to pick up some lines or maybe get picked up somewhere by an agent and become a
Yeah.
star or do other shows somewhere else, not just movies, but TV shows and things like that. A little bit different than perhaps main actors, but do you still have to try out for these roles? And how do you get that kind of work as an extra?
Well, with the extra work, they had the big hurricane in Louisiana, and Louisiana, had gotten fairly destroyed back then. I think it was, when did that happen? Like '06, maybe '07. I don't even remember the exact date. But when that happened, a lot of work came to Rhode Island. So they were looking for people because they were filming down there and they took the projects here. So I got to get in Underdog, Hard Luck. Um, what was the other one I had said? The Waterfront, the TV show. So I get to do extra work and all that stuff. And that kind of gave me a taste of, even though you're just an extra, it still kind of gave me a taste of it. And I knew that's something I really want to get into. And that's why I've been trying to, pursue it by doing my own stuff.
Well, and with that, because in between, you mentioned a few seconds ago, between being an extra and then jumping into making your own films, you had a season where you were writing books.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that part of your life. What was the subject matter of these books?
Well, it was kind of funny because I was partying a lot back then, like anybody would do, when they're younger. And I kind of got sick of partying weekend after weekend and this and that. And I was like, I want to take some time away and see what I can get done over a 6-month period. So my first book, The Shadow Inside, I literally wrote the whole book by hand in a notebook, like a big 5-subject notebook. I wrote this whole book, both pages. It looks insane. It looks like serial killer stuff, like you'd see in a movie, like all these notes. And the hardest part was when I was done with it, I ended up buying a laptop because I didn't even own a laptop back then. And now you have to take your scribbles and try to turn it into something that's legible. You're like, geez, I don't even know what that says. You can't read your own writing. So the first book came out in '08, and that was called The Shadow Inside. And it was about a kid in Providence that sees shadows, and he notices them noticing him. And he goes on like a supernatural, paranormal type of experience because of it.
Interesting you mentioned the paranormal, because maybe there's something to that. Seeing that, as I scroll down my notes here, you've had a lot going on, my brother. How far back does these experiences go?
Actually, I was figuring that out when I talked on the Dave Schrader show. And the first one was in July of 1988 when I was 14. That was like the first thing I can honestly say was unexplainable. And I'd say the most beautiful part about it was because my dad and I didn't have the best relationship as time went on. I remember he believed me 100%. And I think that's why I always kind of held that experience close to me. He had me get in the car and he drove me right to where it happened. And he looked at me and said, I believe you because I had things in my life that I can't explain either. And I was like, I remember it hit me like, wow, geez, my dad believes me with like no questions. Not that I was a liar or anything as a kid, but he just, jumped on it like, boom, I believe my son, and I thought that was a really cool experience.
And you kind of hit on something I was going to ask you. I was going to circle back with this part. Family history with the paranormal. Prior to your dad saying, yeah, things happened with me, I've had my own experiences. Did you know anything about your past, with your family's past?
My dad had told me only one really creepy story, and he had said, I think it was 1963 when my parents got married, and they had bought an old, like, young couples go to yard sales and flea markets. Everybody, a lot of people do, but I mean, they did a lot of it. And they found an old record player, and they lived in a 3rd floor apartment. It's actually where I lived until I was like 8 years old. And my dad had this old crank record player, and he had it down the hall. Well, my mom and dad were in the kitchen. They have no kids now, like kind of newlyweds, married a couple months. The record player started playing. And my dad said, my mom started yelling, going, oh, Mel, stop it. You're playing games. And he goes, I'm not. And he went down the hall and it was on the turntable. It was playing. So he smashed the thing to bits, he said, and threw it away in 3 different garbage bags. I always remembered him telling me that story. I was like, oh, that is kind of scary. You know what I mean? Because she thought he was playing a joke, and it just seemed to happen after they purchased it from whomever, I guess.
Imagine if you still would have that record player today.
Yeah, can you imagine that? It's an old crank record player, and he says the needle wasn't on or anything, but it kind of just dropped on by itself when they were in the kitchen, and it was down the hall in like the extra room.
Well, I mean, I would have had the same reaction. I want to get this shit out of here.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. The scariest part would be walking down the hall to see if somebody was standing there. That would be even more scary, but that didn't happen. He said so. That's a
Oh,
good thing.
well, not yet,
Not
because
yet. Yeah.
as far as timeline in your life with things, and I'm looking around. I'm having not a challenge finding what to talk about, but let's get into the part where college,
Yeah.
because a lot of things happen there as well. Now, I know some of the stories during your time in the military. We're going to save that here in a little bit, but what was going on in college at that time?
Well, the college thing was weird because I moved to Indiana in 1996, and I only stayed till '02. I came actually back to Rhode Island October 16th of '02. I moved back here. So I was like there, 6 years or so. But it was kind of funny. So much stuff happened when I was out there. And the majority of it, it's like I try to like pick things apart to say, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. Even now, I'm in my 50s, and I look back on it and I'm like, there's no explanation to most of the stuff that took place. You know what I mean? Like, I like, which instances are you thinking of? Like the snake lady and stuff that I had sent you, or?
I believe it was Snake Lady, but I think there was something else as well. But I'm already invested in the title Snake Lady.
Yeah. It was like 1998, and there was a gym that it was all over the place. This gym, it was called Bally's Total Fitness. Used
I
to be
remember
around.
them. I owe them a
I
lot
had
of
a
money.
pen.
Collections came after me.
Well, it came after you, Bally's.
Yeah, because I didn't pay, so collections came after me. Kind of the
Oh,
same thing with
collections.
Columbia.
Oh.
Yeah, the same thing with Columbia House. I couldn't afford that either. They came after me too. But I'm sorry. You talk about
Oh man.
Bally's. That was a big L for me back then. But go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
Well, I had like a Bally's, membership, but I also had free passes. So my friend Rob comes over one day, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go work out. Do you want to come? I got a pass." Yeah, sure. Sunny day. It was like July. I believe it was July 1998, and it was on the other side. I lived in Indianapolis, but this was on like the other side of Indianapolis. We're driving there. I had a 2000 SX Nissan 2000 SX, flip up lights and stuff like that. Cool little car. It was like all electrical. We're driving to the gym. There's a city bus parked just like they do when they pull up and they let people out. We're getting ready to pass the bus, and people are getting out of the bus. And for some reason, I looked, and a woman that was getting off looked our direction, meaning me and Rob that were in the car driving by. And just to explain it like, the best way I possibly can, it looked like her hair and her face became a cobra. She had like wavy, like, like long flowing type of hair, dark skin. She didn't look Spanish or black, but she had a dark tint to her skin, and like a grayish style raincoat she was wearing. And I remember when she came out, when I looked again, and she looked right at us. But in a way, I always remembered like, I'm looking at you because I know you see me type of a look. And her face and hair looked like a cobra, but this quick. Just like flipped her hair. It looked like that. She turned and went back into the crowd. Now, when I saw it, I reached over and I grabbed Rob because he went, oh, he either gasped. I can't remember if it was a gasp, but he went like, oh, like he saw something. So I grabbed the guy's arm. I said, Rob, what did you just see? He goes, nothing. I said, what do you mean nothing? So I pulled in front of the bus, and I said, I'm getting out. I have to go find that woman. And this is a pretty tough guy, Rob. And he's like, dude, don't get out of the car. Please don't get out of the car. I said, why? I said, what did you see? He goes, she looked like a cobra. Now, I didn't say snake or cobra to him. He said it, but that's exactly what I saw. So we went the rest of the way to the gym. Still, like I said, sunny day, beautiful day. Go in the gym, and neither of us wanted to work out. I looked at him. I said, I don't want to work out. He didn't want to work out. Drove back to my apartment. I said, hey, I'll see you later. He went back home. We talked about it for years, but like around 2008 to 2010, I had brought it up on the phone when I had my girlfriend on the phone. We kind of just started dating. I said, let me call my buddy Rob. He didn't want to talk about it. He acted as if it never happened. That's like a 10-year later time frame, 10, 11 years, whatever. So I think it scared him to that extent, and he just didn't want to talk about it anymore. But that's an instance where two people saw something. It wasn't on a dark road or anything like that. And it's at a time when you least expect to see something.
And that's amazing because sometimes there's been a lot of different situations where you'll see something but nobody else has, and it's hard to have that conversation with somebody if they haven't seen it just like you have. Now, with that cobra lady, the snake lady we're talking about here, and you and your friends saw it, first thing that comes to mind is reptilians.
But
I believe also they're shapeshifters as well. What are your feelings on reptilians? Have you ever really looked into the whole thing?
I've heard of it, but I never, like, even back then, I never would have thought anything like that, because I really didn't start getting into the internet until, like, when you went to jobs and they made you use the internet, and then you start getting in the internet at home and so on and so forth. So around that time, like early 2000s, late 90s, yes, some companies that things that I did were using it. Even school wasn't using it much at that point. You could still go to college and really not use it as much. You know what I mean? Typing papers, maybe, yeah, but I didn't go online very often up to that point. I think maybe from that point forward I did, but early 2000s wasn't too big. So I didn't really research that. So I really didn't know anything about it. But years later, when I heard of the reptilian stuff, I kind of put two and two together, and I was like, wow. I said, maybe that's what it was. But it's got to, whatever it is, it has to be more powerful than us, because when it looked, it's almost like the timing was that perfect for me to look, because you have to remember, I was driving. Indianapolis is a busy city. I'm driving, we're talking, sunny day. I happen to look, and I looked again, and it was as if she looked when I looked, did the thing with her hair, showed me what I saw, and went right back to normal and then into the crowd. Almost planned or timed, or as if it showed it to you to let you know there's more out there because you're not significant. You know what I mean? Like, to scare you. It's a lot of ways to look at it when looking back,
And that's kind of like getting struck by lightning, because that's not something an everyday person sees.
No, it's not. I mean, that's something I try to, when people ask me these stories, and I, tell them again and again, or when things happen, which happen often with me, a lot of it, you tell the story, many people think you look whacked, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not making this up. I mean, because I have witnesses on some things, and you know what I mean? Like, some of the stuff is really unexplainable, and you got somebody that saw it with you. Not Rob, because I know Rob doesn't want to talk about that stuff anymore, but for a long time he did, and it used to scare the guy. It really did. It was something maybe he didn't believe in until he saw it.
Now, will Rob not talk about it to this day? If you were
We
to
haven't
call him,
talked since 2015. It's one of those things. We were friends since like 96. We had a phone call in 2015 about something totally different. He says, I'll talk to you next week. I never heard from him again. So last I heard, he's living in Australia.
okay,
He's
yeah,
one of these guys that kind of bounce around,
yeah, and understandable. We've all had friends like that. I got one in particular that I won't mention. Yeah, I'll call you next week, but 5 years later. But anyway, so
Well, it's a school
yeah,
bus. I mean, it's a bus. Did you know that? Life, people get on and off the bus. Once I adapted that in my head. So whether you had good friendships, bad friendships, whatever, if you ever had a good time with that person or something you could walk away from, they just got off the bus. They might get back on. It's a bus of life, I think of it as now. That way, when those things happen, it doesn't upset you as much.
that's a perfect way of looking at it. They're there in your life at that time for a reason,
Yep.
and then maybe they'll go away, they'll come back again, and then they'll serve some sort of purpose in that time as well. You'll learn from them. Maybe the friendship will even get better at that point.
Yeah, and
So
then vice versa.
yeah,
You may get on and off their bus.
yeah,
You know what I mean? You might have your reasons to get on and off that bus, get on, maybe never get back, get off or whatnot. And then with you, it's the same thing. It's reciprocal.
and with that time with the corporate lady, because then has it always been female entities with you? Because if I'm looking at my notes, you also had another experience with a demonic female looking figure, but this time it's not in Indianapolis. We're talking a little bit further away. We're talking about Romania. How did
I
you
even
wind up
have
in
a photo.
Romania? How did you wind up in Romania in the first place?
Well, I went on the Tours of Terror with Charles Ronay's group in '04, and I didn't have even a cell phone back then, but I did have those little cardboard cameras, little crank cameras.
Yeah.
You buy them, you could get two in a package, but I don't even know if you could still buy them. Maybe you can, but I had that as a camera. So here I am, and I think it was Sibiu was the city in Romania, or Shigasora, one of those cities. There was a couple getting married the next day. They were on the tour. They set it up way ahead of time to go on the tour and get married. And everybody on the tour got to go to the wedding, which was pretty awesome. You get to go to a wedding with you there. That was really cool. And the wedding, we went through Borgo Pass, and they got married in Transylvania on Halloween night, 2004. And it was kind of cool because I was dressed up like Dracula on the Halloween night, and I got to bite a female reporter on the neck on Romanian TV. I wish I had a clip of that. But I was like with the fangs, and I didn't actually bite her, but I was like behind her on the thing. It was pretty funny. But I took a picture of them in this cemetery. They were sitting like near a grave. And I said, hey, can I snap your picture? And they said, yeah. And they sat together. I took the picture, thought nothing of it. It's a disposable camera. I can't see what I took in the picture. When I get back to Rhode Island, I'm at CVS getting them developed. I'm looking at a magazine, and the lady at the counter goes, are you Jason Tavares? And I close the magazine. I'm like, yeah. She goes, can you come up here? And I'm like, oh, crap. I didn't know what was on. You're on a trip. You get crazy on these trips. And I'm up there looking at the pictures with her. I thought she was going to show me something else. And she flips through and she goes, what's that? And I said, I don't know. It's a photo of the people I took the picture of. And in the background, you see a black shadow of a woman, but not a shadow. It's like making me a black figure, totally black figure, hat, everything. And it's going up the stairs. And I have a photo of it I can show you. Let me just spin this way without bumping the table.
Oh, it'd be awesome if you got that picture.
For purposes of the show, I'm going to block the couple. I'm going to block it with my hand so you can't see the couple. But if you can see my hand, kind of a hard position here. This is the photo, okay? And I have it over a blown up. Mm-hmm. That's her walking up the stairs. It looks like a woman, and that's the blown up picture. So I'm going to position, I'm covering the people that were in it with my hand. But can you see her going up the stairs here?
Yeah. Wow.
There, that's her there. I don't know if I can angle it better for you. And then there's the actual photo here of her in the background going up the stairs. And there's a guy here named Keith E. Johnson. He has a pretty popular Rhode Island show called Ghosts Are Near. And I showed this on his show. And Keith says, he goes, paranormal investigators, I have big shows and stuff, would give their right arm for that find. And I said, yeah, it's not even, I can't even contribute to being a find because it's not something I saw when I took the picture. I just took the picture of these people, and that came up, which is crazy because anywhere I've lived, not anywhere I've lived, but like apartment-wise in Rhode Island, I've had it on the wall in one of my rooms. And I have a friend, and she came over one night with her new boyfriend. She goes, oh, can I bring the guy I'm seeing over? And I said, yeah, sure. So this guy comes in, pretty jacked guy walking in, and he goes, hey, what's up, man? Shook my hand, squeezed it real tight to show how tough he was, like guys do. And, she goes, can he see the picture? And I said, yeah, it's on the basement wall. There's a beer in the fridge, grab a Coors Light. Guy grabs a beer, walks downstairs, big jacked guy, and you hear him go, oh my God, like in a woman's voice. He was like scared. Me and her laughing upstairs. He comes back up. He goes, why would you have that on your wall? And I said, well, I took the picture in '04. You know what I mean? And, here it is, whatever year that was, 2006, 2007. I said, it hasn't done anything to me yet, but the guy was blown away. And this was like a non-believer. And he saw it up close. He was like, oh my God. It really scared the guy.
Yeah, it's seeing is believing. And
yeah,
with that camera, were there any other anomalies in any of the other pictures? Now, do you still have the negative of that too?
It's funny. Dave Schrader asked the same question, and I have to dig more in the basement, but I must have it because negatives, when you're looking at them, it's hard to see what's on there. but I got a box of negatives. So if it's anywhere, it's in that box.
Yeah, you got to take a little, put up against the light. You'll be able to see something. Not great, but you might be able to see something.
Yeah, you can tell. Yeah, or use a flashlight or something to look at it. But I'm going to go through them again because I know a lot of people won't believe it unless they see the negative. It's just one of those things. People make stuff all the time. I understand that, but I'm willing to put my hand on a Bible if that means anything. And if it came down to that,
Oh, I mean, it means something to me, but I don't anybody else. But for me, for sure, on that, I was listening to one of your many interviews you've done in the past, and we're going to move on to another part of your life in the military. I was very amazed for what I heard that day because I've never had an experience such as that. I've had many different types of experiences in my life, very strange, and I can attribute it to mostly paranormal because not every experience is paranormal. Sometimes things just happen that's weird. We're talking about a full-fledged body double, not something that you just saw, but other people saw as well. If you don't mind, I mean, you probably told the story 1,000 times, but if you could make it 1,001, that'd be great because I'm listening to the story like there's no damn way, but yeah, there was. If you don't mind, let's talk about it because I'm interested in knowing how many times you saw this.
Yeah, because I was only at Fort Campbell from 1992 to 1996 on active duty. And I'd say this was 93 or 94, just to try to get, the year straight. I remember it was a regular day. I got off work. I still had my uniform on. So we had what's called COB, that's close of business. You do your final formation. You go, you're off for the night or whatever, unless you have other duty. I went to chow, which is the mess hall. You go and eat. Came back to my room, and I was we had like desks then. We got like these nice desks actually. They had metal cabinets. And it was like a kind of like it was like two cabinets here, but you could fold an arm out where you could work on like a desk. And then when you were done, you could put it back. So I had like a little wooden chair and I'm at my desk in my room, minding my own business. I was writing a letter or whatever. I get knock at the door. 3 of my friends come in. One of them is my buddy, Mike. And they come in and like, hey man, what's your problem? And I look, I'm sitting in the chair. I said, I don't have a problem. What's your problem? And they're like, we just went up to you at the PX. The PX is like a mall on post. It's like a big, huge, like a Walmart almost on military posts. They said they saw me at the ATM machine, another sunny day outside. They walked up to me. They're like, hey, Tavares, my nickname's Tavares, but they were probably like, hey, Tavares, or, whatever. I looked at them, took the money out, and walked away. And they're like, hey, dude, what's your problem? So when they told me this, I said, when did I do this? They said, we just came back from the PX, dude. It was, you're standing there, we're talking, why are you ignoring us? What's your problem? I said, what was I wearing? And they said, civilian clothes. And I said, why would I put this back on? Why would I put my uniform back on? And they looked at each other and they're like, yeah, the guy was in civilian clothes. And I said, so it couldn't have been me. And they're like, there's no way it wasn't you. So that all passed, whatever. Time goes on. I don't know the time frame, couple weeks, couple months. I'm driving a HIMMET. And a HIMMET is like, it's as long as a bus, but you can put ammo in the back, like artillery rounds. You can put supplies. It's for transporting troops, for transporting supplies, but you can put a lot of stuff in there. So we're driving down a road and you have a passenger driver, which they refer to as like a TC. It's like a passenger you have just in case, you know what I mean? So you have a secondary driver. And we're going out to an ammo point with the rounds. I'm driving down the road, sunny day, and there's another HIMMET coming in the other lane, going the other direction. I'm driving, and the guy I had over here was sleeping. I'll say his last name. Okay, his last name was Valancourt. It was the guy's name. He's sleeping. I'm coming my way. This guy's going this way in his HIMMET, and I'm looking, and it's me driving that other HIMMET, but a little heavier. And I know it was a little heavier because I'm staring. Lucky I didn't collide with the damn thing, but the guy looked a little heavier in the chin, maybe 10 or 15 pounds. Because, when you look in a mirror, you can tell how you look. I looked at him. It looked just like me, but a little bit heavier. So I'm reaching over to get Valancourt. I'm like, Valancourt, wake up, wake up. He wakes up just as we pass. And he was mad because he wasn't one of the 3 guys that came to my room. He didn't see the guy at the ATM machine. And he's like, man, he goes, what are you waking me up for? I was up late last night. He was all mad. And I was telling him, I said, well, the Mike and the guys saw this guy just like me. We just drove by. And he goes, and you wake me up for that? He was like really pissed off. But I always remembered that because when I went back and told my friends, I said, I think I saw that guy. I saw him in a Hemet driving past. And I said, so you guys, weren't screwing around. I did see him. So, we had some form of believability now between the group, from a misunderstanding that is now understood. Because, even though we saw this guy at separate times, he was seen by me and them, which was, just strange, just, very, very strange.
Now, was that the only time you've seen yourself outside of yourself?
Yeah, I never saw anything like that again with myself where like they saw that maybe, that guy or a guy that looked just like me. And then I saw the guy too at a different time. It's never happened again to that level. Because this guy here could have been me. I mean, if he had lost 10 pounds, he could have gotten on a plane and went home and visited my mom. She probably would have let him in and said, oh, hey, Jason, because he looked that much like me. I was like, wow. I was like, it's insane.
I mean, it's a good thing that, he could just totally wreck your credit report. You know what I'm saying? If they could have passed as you and your life could have gone awry after a while. It's like, hey, I just saw you were a real jerk. Oh, well, that wasn't me. But it happens. Not to me, not yet, thankfully. Now, talk about mirror images, and I know I'm trying to be funny, but I'm not. You're a gym guy. Every once in a while, I mess around in the gym myself. There's a mirror in the gym. You look pretty badass. And there's a mirror at home. Once you get from the gym, you're not looking so good. So which one's telling me the truth?
I would go with the one at home because the one at the gym, you have too much to compare it to. And the other people might be on substances, which will make you frown upon yourself more. So I just stick to the one at home.
Yeah, the mirror at home never lies, man. So that's okay. It's amazing. For me, creatine's the only thing. It's the only substance I'm taking. And high quality H2O. So that's all I need, my friend.
Yep.
With your experiences in different locations, having these strange encounters, one that comes to mind here, because we're talking about bumping into yourself and other people seeing you, but you're also bumping into people in places that seem impossible.
Yeah.
So what are these places and who are these people?
This is a funny one. This is the first one. I have a couple, but this is the first one that comes to mind. I was when I was a Army recruiter. I was an Army recruiter for 8 years here in Rhode Island and then a year out of state. I talked to a gym teacher. I was going to be a recruiter at a new school, actually not far from where I live right now. I haven't been in the Army since 2019, so this is a story from, years before that, probably, I don't know, I'm going to throw the date out there, 2009, 2010, I don't know the exact date. I'm talking to this female gym teacher on the phone. My name's, Sergeant First Class Jason Tavares. I'll be the new, Army recruiter at the school. And what you do that for is you touch base with the gym teachers as a recruiter to get like an in at the school so you can teach a gym class all day. That way, if what you're teaching is appealing to some of the students, you can hopefully at that point maybe give them your card and set up an appointment to meet with them and their parents, to discuss the benefits of the military, and they can discuss, hey, son T came in, he taught a gym class for the day, so on and so forth. I'm thinking about the military, and then you can kind of rattle your spiel to the family, with the student there, prospective, soldier in the future, kind of get it out there, but they get to meet you in a training environment, in a sense, doing that. So I built rapport with this teacher. We set up a date as I'm going to be the new recruiter in the school. She goes, I'm going to New York. I'm going to be out of town for a couple of days. No, actually, no, she didn't even tell me New York, I don't think. She said she's going to be out of town for a couple of days. I was going to be out of town for a couple of days too. So we planned on meeting, I think that Tuesday, and I believe this was like a Thursday. Like I said, this is like, years ago. This is 2008, 2009, 2010. I went to New York that weekend. My friend came up from Florida. We went to the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, and out to Long Island where some of his friends live. I'm coming out of the Empire State Building, okay? And I bump shoulders with this lady. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She had a friend with her. I had my friend with me, my buddy. When I looked at her, I saw the school name on her jacket. And I said, you're the gym teacher at, such and such a school." And she goes, "Jason?" She recognized my voice. Now, I live in Rhode Island. This is New York. This is, a few hundred miles away. And we bump shoulders coming out of the Empire State Building. What are the chances of that? Her friend was freaked. She goes, that's the Army recruiter that's coming to teach the gym class. And my friend was like, "Dude." Now my friend was blown away by it, but he's seen other weird things happen to me in my life that are like mind blowing. So he was blown away, but not as much as these two. And I was like, "Well, I guess I'll see you on Tuesday." I told her, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll see you on Tuesday, Jason." And she's like, "Oh my God, that's freaky. That's so freaky." So now I had more of an in when I went to the school because she told all the other teachers. I actually hit shoulders with the recruiter in New York that I talked to on the phone on like Thursday. That's
One in a
crazy.
million. Yeah, that's 1 in a million for sure. I
One
mean,
in a
there's still a
million. Now,
chance, which did happen.
what was that? I'm sorry.
I say it's 1 in a million, but there's still
Yeah.
a chance, and that chance happened right
Oh,
there.
yeah. And then I had one in Iowa, and this one's really weird, and it took place on Halloween, which makes it creepy, but also like most of my stuff, it was during the day, just like that one was during the day. I took a job out there for a year with the military from 2014 to 2015, and that's where I got Jemmy. Jemmy's from Iowa. I got him from a guy I worked with out there. That's another story. He left it in my office, and I've had him ever since because he might be, hopefully he is, it might be a conduit to something. Doesn't seem like he is, but he might be. So I treat him very well, never get rid of him. Had him like 10 years now, 11 years. Excuse me. Where my girlfriend lives in Rhode Island, there was a motor pool across the street, a National Guard motor pool. Now, a motor pool is where they keep military vehicles and soldiers show up and do their drills on the weekends and, stuff like that. There was a guy I used to always see there because where I parked my car, I could see, he worked there. He was just one of the soldiers there, E5, E6, something like that. But I used to see him every day when I came out of her apartment or if I was over there because he worked there. That was the motor pool he worked in. So I'd see the guy. Sometimes I'd wave, sometimes he'd wave because I was in the military, but I didn't know him. I just knew of him because that's the armory he worked at. I ended up going to Iowa. I'm out in Iowa, and I had a surgery on Halloween of 2015 or 2014. And what it was I had a cyst on top of my head. It was like, looked like a half of a pea. And the doctor ended up doing the surgery in his office. He goes, "Oh, I can do that right here and stitch you up." I don't know if he should have did that or not because I lost a great deal of blood, even though it was a little cut. And he stitched it up and numbed it and, everything that they do. All he gave me was like a couple of pieces of gauze and said, "Oh, you're free to go." And even the girls at the front desk were like, "You okay to drive?" And I was like, "Yeah, I should be fine." I sat down there for a little while and then I went on my way. And I got the next day out of work because it was, I was kind of groggy even from the shots. I go to Walmart. Now, I know I'm a little groggy. I'm in Walmart getting stuff that I need so I can go back to my apartment and not drive for the rest of the day and hopefully for the next day. I'm at the register looking at stuff in line, and I turn and I bump shoulders with this guy. Now, I'm in Iowa. It's 1,300 miles from Rhode Island, where I lived in Grimes, which is right next to Des Moines. I bumped shoulders with this guy who worked across the street from my girlfriend's apartment in Rhode Island. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I said, "Hey, man," I said, "Geez, how weird to run into you here. What are you here for?" He goes, "What do you think?" He goes, "Military training. I'm at Camp Dodge over there." Gave me an attitude. Now, I just had a surgery. I got a big gauze taped on my head. Instead of saying, "Hey, what happened to your head?" he cops an attitude with me, and I've never saw the guy again after that. But I used to see him every time I go to her place. He worked right there. Go 1,300 miles, and I bump into him physically at Walmart. That's weird.
100%. Well, let me ask this question then, because
Yeah.
there's so much more to your story, but why do you think these things are happening,
I
especially
don't
with
know.
you. Have you ever
I
just? I mean, I know you want to think about it, and sometimes you don't have that answer, but do you have a clue as to why, or
I don't. Maybe if you're open to stuff, like I've had a great deal of bullshit in my life, and I think I've taken it all. Maybe not in stride, but I'm still here. Like a lot of people have had a lot of bullshit in their life, and I think I'm capable of taking a great deal of it. And I don't know, maybe the world knows, and I'm also very open-minded. Like if I'm eating and I'm starving and like a little dog comes over, I'll give the little dog my lunch. You know what I mean? I'm like that kind of a guy with animals and things. I think if you're creative and open-minded to stuff like that, and you have that kind of a brain, I think maybe you're more open to seeing other things and oddness happening. That's just something I came up with to kind of explain it. Like, doesn't make you better than anybody else. It's just you're able to maybe see a little more or understand a little more, where other people maybe would just walk by or dismiss it and think nothing of it.
yeah, and everybody's lives a different kind of life, different experiences, and they'll be able to make sense of it on their own way. You're right. It doesn't make you any better or any worse than anybody else, but
Yeah.
I think it kind of makes you special in a way because this is not something that happens to the everyday person.
I'm actually happy it happens. I find it interesting because none of it has hurt me yet. And I think that's good. And it hasn't hurt anybody else that I've been with when we saw something. And, it's kind of funny. People always say, hey, what happens if you saw something like this? And I'm like, well, certain things I don't want to see. Like, I have in my basement, I have a big black oil tank. And lately I've been getting prints on it. Like I got a handprint on it, which isn't a human handprint. Showed it to my girlfriend. She thought I did it at first. And I said, no, I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? We don't have children. There's no kids go to the basement and nobody else has access. And she only goes down there really to go through totes or whatever. I always wash the clothes and I work out there 4 days a week. So nothing could have done it. And the way it started, which is weird, and this kind of ties into like, why you're seeing strange things and you can dismiss stuff or whatnot. It started with, looked like sergeant rank. It's kind of weird because I mentioned the military. Looked like the sergeant, or like a private E2. Looks like butterfly wings. Looked like 3 of those upside down with a line next to it. That had to be drawn with a finger. So I let it go, took a picture of it. I could show it to you, but it's on my phone. You can't see it really with the light. Another time I saw 4 fingertips pressed into the dust. And I asked her, did you happen to touch it? She goes, I haven't been down there. So, okay. Took some Windex on a rag, wiped the whole thing off, cleaned it. Recently, as far back as a show I just did, I think 6 days ago, I did a show with the Python's Paradise out of Canada, Greg Gilbert's show, Greg Gilbert's Python's Paradise. It's a podcast. He had asked me when was the last time something strange happened to you, and I said today. And it was like 5 days ago. I found a handprint in the dust because I let the dust build up so I can see what else is on there. It looks like 4 fingers, okay, pressed against it, and the little finger is like bent, like in an awkward way that you couldn't bend it and stick it to the curve of the oil tank. It's like the 4 fingers, a space here, the rest of the finger, a square type of palm, and a long thumb. And it looks like it was rolled onto the oil tank and left there. So I have like 4 different lights in the basement. I turned them all on to look at this thing. And I called my girlfriend downstairs and she goes, oh, are you joking? And I said, this is no joke. I said, look at that. And she goes, oh my God, it looks like something laid its hand on it and like rolled it in a weird way. So I've wiped it off since again. I'm letting the dust build up now for the 4th time to see what else shows up. But that's like probably the thing that's the most recent that's taken place. Now it's like right at home. You know what I mean? And this house I've had for 7 years, and the stuff here is starting to build up much like it did at the other place where I lived. But nothing's hurtful. And I don't want to see what that is. Like, my friend Lynn said, oh, hopefully you get to see it. And I said, I don't want to see what made a print like that in my basement. No, I don't want to see that. I'm hoping it doesn't show itself.
Well, And it might, because there is a trend with you with shadow people or
Yeah.
seeing strange things. And it's going to be a weird segue because in the topic of shadow figures, somehow you got to get in your travels, you wound up in the Bridgewater Triangle area.
Yeah.
What put you in that location? What was going on that time in your life?
Well, I got a good buddy. I'm going to say his name. His initials are RC. I don't know if he wants to say his name on the air, but he's been in like 18 of my films. We found out it's kind of funny how we met. We went to high school together. He was a senior. I was a sophomore over 30 years ago. I got a call on the phone one day in like 2006. This guy wants to transfer, I think, from the Navy Reserves to the National Guard when I was a recruiter. And I said, oh, cool. I can help you with that. It's called the 368 transfer. You get that command to sign it. You sign it, transfer his files over, find a unit for him to go to. Pretty easy. And he had already been in the Army before, so it was pretty easy transfer. He had Army and Navy, now looking to come to the Army National Guard. So I'm talking to him on the phone. I said, well, my office is in Warwick. He goes, oh, I live in Warwick. I said, that's cool. I said, I can meet you right at your house. Where do you live? He goes, I live on Post Road. And I said, I live on Post Road. And he goes, I live at the Village Green condominiums. I said, that's where I live. So when I met him, I ended up talking to him. I said, hey, we went to high school together. And he was like, really? He didn't even remember because he was a senior. I was a sophomore. So I enlist the guy. We went to high school together. I enlist him or transfer him over into the Army National Guard. Now he's in the Army National Guard. I'm talking to him about that. We're kind of becoming cool. And one day he asks, he goes, this is like in 2018. He goes, oh, excuse me, Sergeant First Class Tavares, can I be in one of your movies? And I said, first off, I'm Jason. I'm not on duty. We're not doing anything. Just call me Jason. We're at the mailbox. We've been friends like ever since. So here he is being in my films now. He's been a great actor. The guy's like a natural actor, awesome actor, and cool guy, like very, very stand-up. Like if you ever want a stand-up friend, this is a stand-up guy. He one day says, after all these years of filming together, it's like 2021, he goes, hey, you like paranormal stuff. Have you ever been to the Bridgewater Triangle? I'm like, what's that? And he goes, you don't know what that is. He goes, you've been all over the place doing this stuff. And I said, I've never heard of it. It's with the city of Taunton, Massachusetts is in the center. You got Freetown, Abington, and Rehoboth are the surrounding points of the triangle. They say Bridgewater Triangle. The city of Taunton in the center. And the Freetown forest, I think, is like a 200,000, something like that, square mile forest. It's massive. But even there's like prominent people out there that have seen things in that forest. And we go at least twice a year now since 2021. In 2022, he and I were in the forest together, and there's a road called Copper Cut Road. And this didn't happen to us, but there's like a story of like a ghost truck driver that follows people. He gets right up on your bumper and then he vanishes. We didn't see that, but that's the story of Copper Cut Road. And once again, it's a story where I'm with somebody. We went out to the woods. It's during the day. Two guys walking through the woods. He's, maybe 8 feet in front of me, roughly, looking at all different things there. You see a lot of weird stuff out there, like trees bent way over, to the ground, like Bigfoot type of stuff. Branches broken way up on the tree, like at heights that, even like Shaquille O'Neal couldn't reach, which I found weird. Or maybe he could reach, but the average person wouldn't reach, like, 7, 8 feet in the air with broken branches, which is odd. We're walking, still kind of talking, sunny day. I happen to look. Or actually, before I look behind me, I hear crack of a branch. And he and I have talked about that since. He said it was a deer. It was a deer stepped on something. I feel it was something much bigger because it was a massive crack. And we had been walking for a while now, maybe like a half mile in. And it was so loud, it echoed. That didn't do anything. But when I had looked back at one point, something did this behind a tree. A black oval. And I saw it and said nothing. I looked again, nothing there. We kept walking. I didn't want to be the guy to say it because he already knew I liked paranormal. I had a lot of paranormal experiences. We do films together. Most of them are kind of eerie. We're walking, and all of a sudden, Rich goes, hey, did you see that? And I said, what? And he goes, well, it looked like a black oval leaned out behind a tree. I went, dude, I saw it back there. I saw the same thing. So our first time in the Bridgewater Triangle, we both saw something at 2 separate times and had a similar description during the same movement in the woods,
Talking about a shadow figure. You think it could have been a cryptid of some sort?
I don't know. It really didn't have arms, legs. It was more or less like, you know, you just figure it's a sunny day. It just looked like leaned out and leaned back, but he saw the same thing up ahead, which is odd. Real creepy.
That is, man. Your first time there, you struck gold.
Yeah,
what are the chances, right?
Something to talk about afterwards, because we always go out and eat afterwards, like to a tavern. It's the same tavern we always go to. And now we got a bigger group. We have like in kind of a larger group. I think we're up to like, you know, 4 guys, but usually it's only 3 that show. But we're always trying to pick up more people to go out there because, you know, you never know what somebody's going to see.
True, especially hanging out with you. I think the chances
what he
increase
says too.
for some reason. And
I've
that's
seen it in
fine,
my
you know.
girlfriend's apartment too. We saw some weird stuff. We were laying in bed one night. I think this was 2013, 2012, 2013. Her bedroom had a window that was over here, but there was a house next to it. So you couldn't really get a shadow on the wall like you did in this apartment. We watched a shadow, and I didn't know she was looking at it. We're just laying in bed, and I said something. Then she goes, "You see that too?" It went up the wall, across the ceiling, and behind her TV set where there was a little table. And I said, it just went behind the TV, and there was no light that could have made that happen. And it went behind the TV. She never had any real happenings after that. But we both saw that, and it was very scary to see when you're in bed. I mean, things were a lot scarier when you're in bed. And that was at nighttime. That was a nighttime occurrence.
I mean, yeah, you're kind of the most vulnerable there when you're just laying in bed.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
When you're in bed, yeah, it's scary. It's like, because your mind goes right to horror movies.
Just like anything, you know, it was horror movies sometimes that is the best and most entertaining way to, I guess, deal with the demons or these ghosts. You know, so it kind of prepares you for these type of things, so you're not so scared. But you know, if you really want to break it down, no matter who, there's always a certain level of I wouldn't say scared, but an elevated sense of danger of sorts.
Yeah, I think you have to be almost on the verge of insanity to not be scared of something that you don't see every day. But at the same time, I think you have to really, you're kind of wound too tight to not accept things. I mean, because like if I told you there was a creature out there, you know, that weighed 4,000 pounds and drank water out of its nose and had ears that were this big, would you think that was crazy?
If I'd never seen one before, I say, yeah, you're kind of yanking my chain.
Yeah, it's an elephant.
Yeah.
I just described an elephant. But if I told you that, you'd be like, that's not real. And I said, yeah, and it has tusks that come out this big. It sounds crazy, but you've seen an elephant. I've seen an elephant. So we're okay with it. The more things you're okay with and see, then you're able to allow other stuff in. And I think I've seen so many things that it would take a great deal to scare me. I'd probably be more scared if that puppet talked or like a little old lady crawled across the ceiling. That would scare me.
Oh, no. Those things would be extremely disturbing to me. But you brought up, and I was going to move on to your films. But before we do that, I got one more question.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the doll in the back. It's a standout feature right now on this video. And I know you mentioned earlier that you found it or got it. Was it in Iowa, right?
Yeah, this is Jemmy. Now, the story with Jemmy is pretty creepy. I'm going to put him back. Jemmy, I'm going to put you back. Okay. So I was working out in Iowa, and I had this guy. His name was Cummins, his last name. And we worked in the same office. So he is from Davenport, Iowa. I lived at an apartment when I was out there in Grimes, Iowa, which is 4 miles from our base, Camp Dodge in Davenport, where Camp Dodge in Des Moines. His family lived in Davenport, which is about 3.5 hours away. So he had gone home for that weekend. I come in one day and he's in the hallway giggling like a kid. And I'm like, dude, I said, what's wrong? He goes, oh, I put something in your office. And he's like all smiling. So I walked in there and Jemmy, I named him Jemmy, Gemmie. Jemmy's sitting at my desk, and I'm like, dude, what the hell is that doing there? He goes, I was out with my kids and my wife, and I saw it at a pawn shop, and I started laughing. I said, I know a guy that would like this. So he bought it for me, and I've had it ever since. So when I went on vacation when I was in Iowa, I used him as as like an alarm system in my apartment in case somebody broke in. I put him in a swivel chair with a note that said, like, get out. So if somebody did break in and they saw that, it would probably freak them out. But nobody broke in the apartment when I was gone. But I had Jemmy there as like security. But I drove him all the way back here from Iowa when I moved back. And I've had him in like 6 or 7 films. That recent film I sent you, seemingly Curtis Cusbelch, you can see him at the yard sale. And his credit is Yard Sale Puppet on IMDb because he has his own IMDb page. But I've used him in a lot of films, though.
Of course, he's got IMDb credits. He's doing really good for himself.
Yeah, he's doing better than a lot of people. Yeah.
Oh, better than me, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. With Jimmy there, dolls sometimes like my mother at one point. She used to collect these dolls, these porcelain clown dolls. So already 2 for 2, right? And she used to collect these ones that had no face, but they're supposed to be turn around to color, like they're turning around, counting, like they're playing. Play tag. You turn around, you cover your face, and you turn. Then after you count to a certain number, you go find your friends, right? Or hide and go seek, not tag, right? There's something about ventriloquist dolls, or those types like Jimmy, that are extra creepy. Does he catch you by surprise sometimes?
No, never.
Oh, shit.
I think it's the human quality. He lives in a locked box in the basement. He came out for your show. He was out at the yard sale in the seemingly Curtis Cusbelch movie, back to the box, and then after your show, if nothing strange takes place, back to the box. But I do have a creepy story about him if you'd like to hear it.
Absolutely.
In 2010, my friend, I call him Nick the Swede. He lives in Virginia. We were in the artillery together. He's a big 6'5" Swedish guy, but he lives down there now. He stayed up here for a couple of days in the guest room. So as a joke, before he got here, he knows about Jemmy. I put Jemmy in this little rocking chair at the edge of the bed on the floor. And I said, hey, if you're going to stay here, Jemmy's going to stay in the room with you. And he's, a big tough guy. He goes, oh, I don't care. Jemmy can stay with me. So we're in the kitchen later on, me, him, and my girlfriend goofing off, eating and stuff, talking. All the power goes out. No rain, no wind, just doof, shuts off. And I said, what the heck? So I go outside, and he comes outside with me. The street, everybody has lights. Normal life. My house is pitch black. And my girlfriend comes out. She goes, what's going on? And I said, everybody else has power. And I stopped, and I said, wait a minute, Jemmy. And Nick goes, what? So we go into the room, and I pick Jemmy up like this. And before I picked him up, we noticed light from the blinds was coming in on his face. It kind of like literally came in almost in a creepy way. And I said, let's take Jemmy back to the basement. So I picked Jemmy up, and we walked him down to the basement, put him back in his box and locked it, tripped the breakers. Lights came on. 4 years now, not one electrical problem. Now, it could be a weird coincidence, but we had connection problems prior to your show, too.
I was just going to bring that up. And this is I'm going to call it a Let's Find Out with Diego exclusive, because I don't know if this has happened in any other show but this one. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. But I'm going to say I'm the first. We're the first.
Yeah.
The second I mentioned the doll during the pre-interview, it kind of, everything went awry for about 20 to 30 minutes. We could not connect after that.
That's strange. But I treat him good, so I don't think he's going to do anything to me. I mean, but yeah, I do have a story, another one that ties into him, but I don't know how much it does. Do you have a couple minutes for another story?
Oh, I got a lot of minutes.
Oh, okay. I went to the Bermuda Triangle in 2023 with my girlfriend on a cruise. The only creepy thing that happened when we were there was the toilet flushed one night in the room, and we were in bed. And I got up and I was like, what the heck? I said, how the heck the toilet flushed? Now, I don't know if that happens on cruise ships by itself. That's the only creepy thing that took place. But we got to go on a glass bottom boat at night on an excursion to the northernmost point of the Bermuda Triangle, which is called Daniel Head Island. And I got to go there, which is so cool to be able to go to one of the points of the Bermuda Triangle. Because as you know, I've spent a great deal of time in the Bridgewater Triangle. Now, prior to going there, I'm with my friend I mentioned, RC. We're in the Bridgewater Triangle, and I dug a big crystal out of the ground. It was like this big. And he's like, oh, that's so awesome. I said, yeah, imagine this thing cleaned up. And I said, do you want it? He goes, no, I don't want a chance bringing it home because you took it out of the Bermuda Triangle. They said crystals have power. I didn't think anything of it. I said, I'm going to take it home. I cleaned it with the hose, had it real nice, and I have a big rock collection. I like rocks. I've always been into like geology. So I had it with my rock collection. Thought nothing of it. Now, this is prior to going to the to the Bermuda Triangle on the cruise. Went to the Bermuda Triangle, safe trip, cool cruise, saw a lot of neat stuff. I come home. We had literally 90 days of problems to the point that it rattled us between my girlfriend and I. And before, and this is something to do with Jemmy, but when we left with my sliding door in the backyard, I had Jemmy propped up in his little rocking chair with a note that said, welcome, just like I did in Iowa with my apartment. So he was out of the box the whole time we were gone. He never moved. He was still sitting in the chair when I got here. When I came back, I was, hey, good man, Jemmy. Put him back in his box in the basement. And I had that crystal in the basement. So Jemmy and the crystal had been in the basement at the same time. From the time I got home, my mom, not to tell too much about my personal stuff, but my mom's been very sick for a long time. She got a huge decline within a few days of us being home. That's one thing that took place, which she's still at that level or not worse today. That took place. My refrigerator flooded my entire kitchen, okay, to the point I couldn't find the shutoff valve. I'm shutting everything in the basement. The little teeny shutoff valve, I was able to call my contractor. He was close by, thank God. He knew exactly where to find it. My girlfriend came home early from work. The whole kitchen was flooded. My refrigerator had died. This is like within weeks now of coming home. I couldn't get this refrigerator out of the house because apparently the refrigerator I had, they took it in the house before putting this particular sliding door on. So when I bought the house 7 years ago, let's say, the refrigerator that was here. I got it with the house. They must have, before they installed the sliding door, had that put in. I couldn't get it out the front door. I had to cut this refrigerator with a Sawzall to get it out of the house. After removing the doors, everything, I couldn't get it out. So when guys brought this new refrigerator, they couldn't bring it in because I couldn't get this one out. They couldn't get it in the front door. They actually had the wrong one they brought. So they had to go get another model that was smaller because I couldn't get it through the slider. And I didn't want to take the slider apart. And I couldn't get this one out. So that's a problem. I was in a class that summer that I didn't need. I went back and got another bachelor's degree, and I graduated in December of 2024 at URI. I had a lot of GI Bill money left over, so I went and got a film degree. I had 2.5 years of benefits left, so I used a lot of them up on that film degree, which was cool. I transferred a lot of credits in. Scariest part is I had to sit in class with the kids today, and that was pretty scary, being 48 years old at the time in school. But I lived through it, graduated pretty good in December 2024. I took a class that summer that I didn't need. It was a whole semester of college in 32 days. And I had already proven to the school I don't need the class. I gave you physics, biology, algebra, trig, transferred in. I don't need this class. Yes, you do. You need this class to graduate. Long story short, passed the class, got an A. They told me you don't need it. Yeah. That was all part of this time coming home. While I'm taking an at-home quiz or something like that was timed, this is all during that 90-day time frame, I hear bah, 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 in the basement. And I'm like, what the hell was that? I opened the basement door. I hear it again. I thought it was like a rat or something running in the vent. I call an exterminator. The guy comes out and he shows up here with a bird this big, got stuck in a vent and fell down into the furnace. And it was running back and forth. Lucky it was not cold outside. It wasn't on. It was just, to heat the hot water. The heat wasn't on. He brings this bird out. Brings the bird up here and shows me. I even have a photo of the guy with the bird, but I don't want to show it because the guy might not want his face shown on the thing. He leaves, okay? Not even an hour later, I hear dot, 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 dot. A woodpecker is attacking my house. I get up out of this chair because I was doing my assignments right here at this table. I walk toward the wall. I hear it again. Da, 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 da. I don't know what it is. I go outside and I yell at the woodpecker. I'm like, hey, I said, what are you doing? The woodpecker took off. So this is in one day. I got a bird in that vent. I got a woodpecker attacking the house. Not long before that, the refrigerator flooded. My mom's health dropped considerably. Gabby, what else happened? What was the other stuff? You remember any of them? I can't remember offhand. It was like 7 things took place nonstop. I got an infection in my toe. This was crazy. I had to have my toe cut open and stitched. My toenail, like if this is your toe and here's your toenail, this is the top of your toenail that you might cut crooked. Mine was growing from down here into my foot, and my foot got all infected. They had to cut my same-day surgery. They popped it open, took it all out, sliced the side of the toenail, and stitched my foot up. And then this was like a weekly thing, all the way up to 90 days, and it stopped. And we've had no real problems. I had a car accident not long ago, but totally unrelated. But during those 90 days, it was like something we didn't think we'd get out of. It was every week was something new, sometimes multiple things in a week. And I don't know if it was contributed to the Bridgewater Triangle, that crystal, the Bermuda Triangle, Jemmy being out of the box, but all of it together was just a great deal of oddities that pushed us to a limit in that time in 2023.
And here you are to live to tell the tale. I don't know what I would have done for those 90 days.
It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy, man. There was other stuff too, and I just can't place it right at the moment.
Well, with all these things now, and I'm always, when I ask people this question, I'm always interested in the answers. I usually get a yes or a no. Never really a maybe. With all these experiences you've had, even in current time, would you ever think about maybe writing a book about it?
It's funny that you say that. I put a lot of what happens in my life into stories. I've only written 3 books, but I do have a new book that's been written since 2016. It's each story is 7,000 to 10,000 words, and there's 20 of them. And it's a great book, but I tie a lot of weird stuff in there, but not specific like you're asking. But I should do one that's exact to things that took place. Because I think it would be that interesting for people to read it. And I think maybe it might help people too, because if people see that maybe they're not the only ones with weird occurrences like that. And weird occurrences that you can share with other people. Like I have, Gabby as a witness with that one. She lives here, my girlfriend Gabby. And, she went through hell as well during that time. So yeah, you're right though. Yeah, a book on that would be great. And hopefully it would, sell well because it's coming right from the heart of real stuff.
And I think it will. And you mentioned it earlier, it would also help other people who might be having similar experiences that they could relate to you and maybe not feel so cursed or haunted, as they would say. But yeah, definitely something to look into. And now for the listeners of Let's Find Out, our friends that want to get to know more about you, watch your films, and then maybe hear more of your stories. Where can
what I never got to tell you? You had asked me earlier about the story, and I told you a little bit about my dad. I never told you what the experience was, though. Remember the one where my dad believed me?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, it was. This is a story where you're going to be like, this guy's nuts. And I said the same thing on the other 2 shows I was on, Dave Schrader's show and Greg Gilbert's. It was 1988, and it's kind of funny. I want to correct something on the Greg Gilbert show. I had said Pleasant Street, and then I went back to Niantic Ave after I watched it. It's Niantic Ave. Pleasant Street's next to it. I don't even know why I said that. But my friend lived on Niantic Ave, a guy I went to high school with. And I had gone to his house, wasn't home, and his street kind of had a little bit of an incline to it. So I'm going up to the top of the street, and if you follow his street in Cranston, it goes Niantic, across a little bridge, and then you go down Niantic into Providence if you decide to go that way. I lived on the Cranston side of Niantic. And there's a little, like I said, the little bridge that goes there gets like a car every now and again. It's not a busy bridge. So, like when you're a kid and, you're kind of on your bike and off your bike and you're walking your bike with your, the handlebars against your chest. I'm kind of doing that because I'm looking at the end, like past, here I am, the bridge is here. I'm looking this way. And When you look that way, there's a road near his house that goes down to a popular restaurant here named Twin Oaks. And it's kind of funny because when you're a kid here, everybody gets right to that turn and they always stop and ask, excuse me, can you tell me where Twin Oaks is? It's like, yeah, it's straight ahead. But they drive all the way there from other states and they can never find it when they get right there. It's hilarious. Today is probably a lot easier with, GPS and stuff, but then people didn't have that. So here I am on my bicycle and I see Abraham Lincoln walking down the street, sunny day, July 1988. I'm 14 years old. The guy pulls on his jacket. He has the hat, just like Abraham Lincoln, how you picture Abraham Lincoln, looking around, not scared, just kind of looking like, not really where I am, just admiring the area. He walked to the end and went around the corner. And like I said, I got my bike, holding the handlebars, walking my bike up, Niantic, near the bridge. And I'm looking. He went around the corner down the street and vanished. I didn't physically see him vanish, but I must have looked down and then looked up again and he was gone. And like I said on the other show, there's nowhere for him to go. There's a house over there. He would have had to have sprinted and hid behind a car or something. But the way he vanished, even at 14 years old, you knew he couldn't be anywhere else but vanished. I get on my bike and I pedaled home full speed. As soon as I get in the house, my dad goes, what did you do? He could see it in your face. So you did something. You're a kid. It's the 80s. He goes, what did you do? I said, nothing, Dad. I was over at Mike's house. I was on my bike and I told him what I just told you. I saw Abraham Lincoln walking down the street. He goes, get in the car. I get in the car. He drives me like a half mile or whatever it is, quarter mile over there. Where'd you see it? And I told him exactly what I saw. And my dad looked at me. It made me feel so good. He goes, Jay, I believe you. He goes, because I've seen things in my life that I can't explain. So he goes, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm okay. And he goes, you just happen to see something that other people, maybe don't see. And, just don't let it scare you. And when he said that to me, it was such an understanding that, he never really embellished that, maybe outside of the record player story I told you when they had just got married in like 62 or 63. He never really embellished that if he had experiences. I know he said he belonged to a group when he was in college. He was in college for a couple of years, and they said he was like the most telepathic. There was like a telepathic group he was in like the 60s, I guess. And I said, why didn't you ever do more with it? And he's, I don't know, we were young and da. He never really told me more about it than that. But the way he believed me, I always remembered that. And it stuck out. And that's how I know that was my first paranormal experience, because I always remembered it, basically because of his reaction.
And one would say that perhaps the words that he told you then prepared you on how to deal with these things later in life.
Maybe, yeah. Kind of gave you that support,
Absolutely. And then
yeah, I never thought of it that way. It's actually a great way to look at it. Gave you a support that you don't know is still there. You still feel it as like something that supported you when you had no idea what it was. So yeah, that's a good angle. I like that.
Yeah, and you'll always hear those words every time something happens, like, "Oh yeah, Pops, you was right." But
yeah.
So now getting back to the earlier question, how can our friends and listeners find out more about you, your books, and your films?
If they put like my name exactly how it looks on the screen, Jason, I always use middle initial J. So Jason J. Tavares. You can, hit me up on YouTube. My YouTube channel. I got a new film on there, seemingly Curtis Cuspelch, which is doing pretty well. And the books on Amazon under the same name. The Shadow Inside, Existence, The Tale of a Fang Killer, and Broken Tracks Beneath Forgotten Windows are the titles. But you can always find me under that name. I don't use pen names or nothing. It's like, hey, if someone's going to find you, they're going to find you, or they might as well find you for good things.
True story. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and on the show description when the episode is released, I'll put the links so that way people find out more about you and your projects. And then I'd love to have you come back later this year, because the notes tell me there's so much more to cover. And I think that some of these stories are going to be very interesting and fascinating for the listeners. Come back later this year. Let's get you on. And we'll talk about them.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Copyright Diego the Podcaster. All content for Let's Find Out is the property of Diego the Podcaster and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, Diego the Podcaster, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out with Diego is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.